All right, let's dive into something that sounds, well, frankly, impossible. We're going to explore how, under just the right conditions, a single dollar can ripple outwards and end up creating millions in value. Now, this isn't magic, it's one of the most powerful and, yeah, most debated forces in all of modern economics. I mean, seriously, does that sound believable? It feels like a trick, right? But it's not. This is the power of what's called the economic multiplier effect. If you stick with me, we're going to break down the actual math and the real world scenarios that show exactly how this incredible growth can happen. The best way to think about it is like a ripple in a pond. When an initial bit of money, that first dollar, gets dropped into the economy, it doesn't just stop with the first person who gets it. Oh no. Instead, it spreads out, getting spent and then respent over and over again, and every single one of those transactions adds to the total economic activity. Okay, so let's tackle that $1 million claim head on. To really get how one single dollar can have such a massive, outsized impact, we first have to kind of rewire how we think about money itself. A lot of us think of money as something static, something that just sits still once we've earned it or put it in a savings account. But the health of an entire economy really depends on money being in constant motion. It's this circulation, this flow from one person's pocket to the next business to the next employee that gives a single dollar its hidden power. So, how does this ripple effect actually work in the real world? Let's zoom in and use a simple everyday example to see how this chain reaction gets started. Just think about your morning coffee. The few bucks you spent didn't just die in the cash register. The coffee shop uses that money to pay its bean supplier. That supplier then turns around and pays the farmer. And the farmer, well, maybe they use it to buy a new piece of equipment. See? Your one little purchase just kicked off a whole chain reaction, fueling the economy at every single step. Now, you probably guessed there'd be some mouth, right? Well, economists actually have a formula to calculate the potential power of this effect. It might look a little technical, K equals 1 divided by 1 minus MPC, but trust me, the idea behind it is incredibly simple. It all comes down to one key human behavior. The real engine of this whole thing is something called the MPC, or the marginal propensity to consume. It sounds complicated, but it's just a fancy way of asking a really simple question. If you get an extra dollar, how much of it are you going to spend and how much are you going to save? That single choice is what determines how big the economic ripple will be. So let's put it to the test. Imagine a town where the MPC is 0.8. That just means that, on average, people spend 80 cents of every new dollar they receive. Well, you plug that into the formula, and it gives you a multiplier of 5. That means an initial $1 investment will ultimately create $5 in total economic activity as it gets passed around. Pretty cool, huh? Now, this isn't just a theory you find in a dusty old textbook. Let's take a look at some of the most powerful historical examples where this very principle was used to literally reshape the world. The idea started bubbling up back in the late 1920s, but it was an economist named Richard Kahn who first put the math to paper in 1931. And then, the legendary John Maynard Keynes grabbed the concept and made it a cornerstone of modern economics in 1936. He was the one who famously argued that government spending could jolt a sluggish economy back to life. And maybe the biggest real-world test of this whole idea came right after World War II. Through the Marshall Plan, the U.S. poured $13.3 billion into rebuilding Western Europe. And the results? A mind-blowing 35% increase in industrial production compared to before the war. This wasn't just charity, it was a calculated investment designed to multiply. We saw it again during the Great Depression in the United States. Research on the New Deal estimates that for every single dollar the government spent on relief programs, about $1.67 in economic activity was generated. It just goes to show you, even in the darkest of times, this effects can be a powerful tool for recovery. But, and this is a really big but, this isn't a magic button you can just push anytime. The multiplier effect has some very real limits, and it's absolutely crucial to understand the conditions where the whole engine can just stall out. The chain reaction gets weaker because of things economists call leakages. Every time money is pulled out of that spending cycle, whether it's put into savings, paid in taxes, or used to buy imported goods, the ripple gets smaller. For example, if you buy a car made in another country, a big chunk of that money leaks right out of your domestic economy. And this, right here, leads to one of the biggest debates in all of economics. You've got the Keynesian supporters who believe the multiplier is greater than 1, making government spending a vital tool to fight recessions. But on the other side, you have critics who argue it's often less than one. They say government spending just crowds out or displaces more efficient private investment. And there are other risks, too. Really high government debt can spook people into saving more because they expect higher taxes down the road. If the economy is already running at full steam, more spending can just cause inflation instead of real growth. And of course, things like corruption or just plain old uncertainty can kill confidence and stop the cycle cold. So we've been talking big picture here, nations, global economies, that sort of thing. But what if we scaled this entire principle all the way down? Well, it turns out you can apply the exact same logic to build your own personal wealth. Let's call it the wealth multiplier. It is the same core idea. A small initial input creates a much bigger amplified output. But in this case, the input is your investment, your skills, or your effort. When you reinvest the dividends you get from stocks, for instance, you're not just earning a return, you're earning a return on your returns. That is a personal multiplier in action. I mean, just look at the story of the PayPal mafia. After their initial success selling the company, the founders didn't just cash out and buy yachts. They reinvested their money, their knowledge, and their networks. That one success created this incredible ripple effect of innovation that helped launch giants like Tesla, YouTube, and LinkedIn. It's a multiplier of talent and ideas, turning one big win into an entire ecosystem of value worth billions. So, how do you create your own multiplier? The key is to think in terms of feedback loops. Reinvest your profits instead of just spending them. Invest in a new skill that doesn't just get you a one-time raise, but opens up a whole new career path. Build systems in your business or your investments, where the hard work you do up front continues to pay you back long after you're done. When it all comes down to it, really understanding the multiplier effect changes how you see every single dollar. It's not just currency in your pocket, it's potential energy just waiting to be put into motion to create something so much bigger than itself. So this brings us to the fundamental question at the heart of this entire topic. After everything we've looked at, what's your take? Which do you think is the more powerful engine for growing an economy? Spending, which fuels that multiplier directly, or saving, which provides the cash for future investment?